I'm safe. I can move through this. I can be with my grief. I'm still here. I'm still taking these steps, these tiny little steps.
Hey, I'm Tanya Wilkinson, and this is Death on the Daily.
Grief can make you feel like you're failing at life. When you've stepped onto planet grief and you're over here on your own and you're looking through the window of social media at all of the incredible things that people seem to be doing in the filtered views of their life, it can feel really lonely. It can feel really isolating. And you can be sat here wondering, why can't I do all these things? Will I ever get that back again? I'm here to say that you're not failing, that what you're feeling is normal, that your energy being depleted is totally okay, that actually there is a path forwards where you will grow around your grief and where actually you will journey forwards and all of those things will be back on the table. But for the now, and in today's episode of Death on the Daily, where I really want to root us into is a practice that can really support us in being in the now, in these really sludgy times of grief, where our grief is roaring and where actually just getting out of bed or doing the dishes or stepping out of the house for a few minutes can feel like we're literally climbing up a mountain. And this practice is in celebrating all of the tiny wins. And this is really important in our grief because actually and in our world where in general, we are pretty terrible at celebrating the small wins in life. Instead, what we do as humans is we look so far up the path and we say, okay, when I get to this, when I am married, I got married last year to my husband, when my marriage comes, the wedding, that's going to be the moment, or to that next holiday, or to that next milestone, when I have this, I will be happy. But actually what we do is that creates like what's next itis. We're always on to the next, on to the next, on to the next. And there's real power when we can be present with and when we can celebrate the small wins along the way, including those wins that are literally us just breath by breath, step by step, navigating through really, really difficult things. And the power of us celebrating all of the small steps along the way is that when we do, it releases mood boosting and motivating dopamine. Actually, when we're celebrating any win, big or small, we get the benefit of that mood boost that is released through our brain. So let's talk about these tiny wins in grief, and let's definitely not look for any of those big light bulb Hollywood ending moments. We know and we trust those will be further up our path, but actually in general in life, when we look on the daily, there is so many little wins, little steps that we can be grateful for, that we can celebrate and honor ourselves for at the end of the day. So let's do that through the lens of these tiny wins in grief. So what are these tiny wins? These tiny wins are the beautifully normal, beautifully simple, little, and almost even sometimes it might feel microscopic steps that we take forwards with our grief. Is those things like, I didn't burn my dinner today after a couple of nights of being distracted in my grief and completely burning my dinner. It could be the fact that actually today I got up and I made my bed. Today I nourished myself. I went to the supermarket and I know that I've been eating a lot more sugar recently, and instead I bought lots of healthy food and I cooked myself a delicious meal. It could just be that today I sat on the sofa and I bawled my eyes out, and that is enough. I think we so often overlook the simple in any time in life, but what I really want to root us into, particularly in these times in our grief, where actually maybe we are rooting a lot more into really, really simple things, is that actually these beautifully ordinary moments actually add up to the extraordinary from the perspective of us just breath by breath and step by step moving through that which is so difficult and so very painful through our grief journey. These little moments, these little tiny wins are the things that are anchor points. And it can mean so much when we look at them, when we write them down at the end of a day, when we can take a step back and say, hey, look at these 5 things that I did. So why do these tiny wins matter so much to us? It's because grief is truly exhausting. It literally rewires our brain. It changes everything. We carry our grief in our body. Our nervous system is dysregulated. And it's easy to think when we just want to laze around in bed that we're lazy. But actually, when we're grieving, and in general, I would encourage that if you feel tired and you want to rest, or in general, you just want to rest, permission to rest, but even more so in grief. And I think we put a lot of pressure on ourselves, particularly when we're used to being high performing individuals, when we're used to having busy lives, when we're used to being always on and go, 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 go. But it's important to know that our brain, our nervous system, our body, everything is literally working in overdrive. And we've really heightened and we're really dysregulated. As I shared in a recent episode of this podcast, literally after my grandmother's died just 6 days apart a couple of months ago, I was walking down the street and someone just coughed and I literally jumped out of my skin. I felt like there was an immediate threat around me. And after that experience, I just needed to go home. I just needed to lie down. I was so exhausted. And it's really important that we honor that. And actually, in honoring that, that is a tiny win that should be celebrated. So what these tiny wins really are about doing is they're really about honoring our truth of where we are right now. It's a reminder to ourselves that right now, I don't need to be functioning as I was before the loss. It's a reminder that we get to be human, that we get to listen to ourselves, that we get to act on that. And that actually, when we act on that, that is something to be celebrated. Again, even if it is that I'm going to go back to bed and I'm going to have a nap this afternoon. And what tiny wins help us to do is to shift us from that self-criticism, from that comparison as well, looking around and going, what's everybody else doing? I'm scrolling on social media. Everybody else feels like they're doing loads, achieving loads, and I'm doing nothing. What it does is it shifts us into gratitude, into self-compassion, into self-love. With our tiny wins, when we're really conscious to them, we can see that actually through my grief, look at what I'm doing. Look at how I'm honoring myself. Look at how step by step, breath by breath, I am navigating this most difficult of things. And what I love about tiny wins as well is that message that they send inside us to our body, to our nervous system, to our brain that is literally using so much energy because it's literally rewiring. It sends that signal of I'm safe, of I can move through this. I can be with my grief. I can do these little things, and these little things are meaningful, even when the big things in life feel absolutely impossible. I'm still here. I'm still taking these steps, these tiny little steps. Hello, beautiful friend. If you're watching this, then I'm guessing that it might be because you're grieving. And you might be like many of the grievers who I support through my grief coaching, as well as people who I speak to on the daily who say to me, T, I don't have time to grieve. I can't find the space in any month to be able to be with my grief. And that's why I've created Grief Cocoon, a brand new monthly live event that happens online so you can tune in from your own grief cocoon at home. And cocooning is really important in our grief. When we are present with our grief, when we allow space for us to tend to our grief through ritual, through nervous system support and care, through reflection like journaling, all of which we're going to be doing in the grief cocoon. It enables us, like that little caterpillar, to go into our cocoon and to support our transformation and our emergence on the other side as that butterfly who's integrated grief as a part of our story. If you want to join us for the next Grief Cocoon event, then head to the show notes and all of the details are there. And when we acknowledge all of these tiny little wins, be it today I had a shower, I got my dogs out for a walk twice a day, I answered one message, I rang a friend, I sat and cried, it could be anything. When we acknowledge those as well, what that helps us to do from a mindset perspective, it helps to create momentum. Because actually, when we've been completely thrown out of our world because of our grief, we've been thrown into this other world. I literally feel like you've stepped off of planet Earth. And I often feel like I'm looking through a glass window at everybody on the earth. But what that can do is it can really knock our confidence. It can knock our momentum. It can knock our resilience. It can knock our perspectives of our capacity to just do really simple things. But actually what this does is it creates gentle momentum that we can slowly build up from. And actually this momentum isn't by forcing ourselves to do loads and loads of things and say, just get out there, just get back into it, get back to normal. What it's doing is actually we're spotlighting, first and foremost, what are we already doing? How can we double down on those to be able to say, hey, look at how I'm already showing up through my grief. Look at this. I'm already journeying forwards with my grief. And that can help to create some really natural and effortless momentum that can then build in time. So how can you make tiny wins a part of your grief support practices? Firstly, it's setting the bar at a deeply human level. It's acknowledging that actually your energy is finite, and when you're grieving, you have less energy than you would do normally. Firstly, grab your journal and just write down what tiny wins you can honor, you can celebrate that you've done today. And again, literally these can be, I got out of bed, I opened all the curtains, I went and made myself a cup of tea, I cuddled my dog. It can be anything. Write down those little tiny wins. And then asking yourself this question: what else can I do today that also honors the energy that I have? Again, it can just be one more tiny win that you're going to add to the list later. Connect within, see what you want to do, and just take that tiny little step forwards. So next up, we've got celebrate showing up and not results. We live in such a results-driven world, and also one where we've got toxic productivity. And all of this is harmful for us in general, but particularly when we're grieving. It can heap the unrealistic expectations of us of actually, I need to be ticking all of these things off of my to-do list. And Tiny Wins is definitely not about that. What this is really about is just celebrating the fact that you are just showing up each and every day exactly as you are. And if some things don't quite go the way that you anticipated, if your tiny win intention for the day was to go and see that friend, and actually you then connect and you say, I just don't have the energy, I'm not really up for it today, that's totally okay. Because actually what we want to celebrate in those tiny wins is just how we show up each day. So it might be that in that situation that you say, actually, my tiny win is the fact that I listened within and I realized that what I want to do is just sit under a blanket on my sofa, and I've rescheduled our catch up for next week instead. Third up, we've got naming your tiny win out loud or in writing. And this is really important because to really build that motivation, to build that momentum, to build that belief, that confidence in ourselves, to do all of that rewiring. Actually, when we write something down or when we speak it out loud or when we speak it perhaps to someone in our life who is our trusted dear friend when it comes to having these griefy conversations with, it can be really, really powerful. So name it. Say to yourself, hey, I'm really, really proud that actually I ate 3 really good meals today. I'm really, really proud that actually today I logged back into my work emails, but I took it very gently and I only responded to 2. Next up, we've got ending the day with gentle gratitude. Here's where we come full circle into our tiny win celebration ritual at the end of the day. And this can literally be a practice that you take a couple of minutes to do. I do gratitude journaling every single evening, and that takes me about 5 minutes. I write about, sometimes it's 2 or 3, sometimes it's 5, 6, sometimes it's 10 different bullet points about what I'm grateful for each day. But specifically, the question that I want you to ask yourself, and this is one that I also ask myself, particularly when I'm in my griefiest of times, is what did I manage to do today, despite how hard today was? This is a really important prompt because actually oftentimes, and particularly when we're grieving, when we're very critical of ourselves, we can beat ourselves up at the end of the day and we can say, I didn't do all of that. All of the stuff I wanted to do today, I didn't manage to do it. But actually, in our gratitude practices, we want to boot any of that criticism and any comparison out of the door. But we also want to really connect in again to all of these tiny wins. Jot down as many of them, but also know that if there's only one that you can really connect into, that one is enough. And as I shared in the last point, it's really powerful as well if you can say to yourself, I'm proud of myself for all of these tiny wins. Whether that's say it out loud, whether that's write it in your journal, just get it down and know that this is doing some really powerful, nourishing, supportive work within. So here's your invitation this week. Notice and name and ideally write down in your journal just one tiny win each day. Whatever that tiny win is, know that it counts, know that it's meaningful, and also know that all of these tiny little wins, they one by one add up, they multiply, and they make all of the difference as we're navigating our forwards path with grief. So that completes this episode of Death on the Daily. And if you received anything from these tiny wins and from this episode of Death on the Daily, I would love it. Love it, love it, love it. And it really supports me if you can hit that subscribe button. If you're listening anywhere where you can give it a rating or a review, that's also really, really helpful and really supportive. As well as if these tiny wins could support someone in your life, then do share this episode with them. And hand on my heart, from my heart to yours, I know how it can feel when we're in the weeds of grief, when it feels like doing the most basic things feels like we are literally climbing and conquering Mount Everest. But I also know that actually us moving forwards through and with our grief, that is in itself, even if it's just in us brushing our teeth, if it's just in us stepping outside for a few minutes of a day, that is really powerful work. We really underestimate just the power of us just showing up for ourselves in these really difficult of times. So wherever you are in your journey, know that I'm here. Death on the Daily is always here. And I'm sending you lots of love and celebration for all of your tiny wins. Thank you for joining me on Death on the Daily. If you liked this episode, it would mean a lot if you could hit subscribe. Plus, head to the show notes to find out about my work as a grief coach, and there's a grief journaling freebie there for you. Until we meet here next time, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something